To me, there's no great chef without a great team. I love to create, and to me, the ultimate freedom of expression is a blank canvas or a block of clay to capture whatever emotions your imagination gives it. For me, good service is efficient and discreet. It's that critical balance. As soon as the client sits down, the communication flow has to start. Customers need to feel that the waiters are supervised, that there's a system in place. I think there are a lot of chefs in DC who have made DC what it is today. I am very respectful to them. I'm very admiring of what they've done. I enjoy what I do because it keeps evolving. When I was a cook, I wanted to be a chef de partie. When I was a chef de partie, I wanted to be a chef. When I was a chef, I wanted to be a restaurateur, and now I am a chef entrepreneur. I am still fulfilling my dream. I think Spain will always remain inspirational, and I think French cuisine will continue to be very French and yet very relevant with its time and keep evolving. But the last thing you want for it is to become too trendy and confusing. It has too much history. I have real admiration for chefs who can maintain an edge and find new inspiration in their cooking after many years. The hardest thing for a chef is to become comfortable with what you do, not to be too neurotic and worried with what you are doing and how wrong or right you are. I think fine dining should be part of the community where it is, more than just for the people who are going to make a special occasion. I love Italian food. It's soulful like French food. Italian food is original and homey. It's market-driven, but also can be locally sourced. Something I learned when I was very young, with cooking, it doesn't matter where you are, you can always cook. You can end up in small village in Peru where somebody's cooking, take a spoon and taste it, and you might not be too sure what you're eating, but you can taste the soul in the food. That's what is beautiful with food. It's not good to thicken sauce with too much butter because it can cause heaviness. You don't want to avoid butter, but you also don't want to put too much. Add it slowly. I have no pretension that I belong in DC. I mean, I have to be cautious on how we do our restaurant. I like to go hear jazz late night up in Harlem. No one knows restaurants like a New Yorker. They're incredibly discerning and restaurant savvy. Balthazar has a great New York vibe with the accent of a Parisian brasserie. I usually have the corned beef hash with a fried egg on top and wash it all down with Krug champagne. Le Cirque at first was one of those general French restaurants in town, which were cooking more or less the same food. At Le Cirque, I wanted to do something different while respecting the foundation of the restaurant. I did that through the menu. I think at Le Cirque I learned how to make real food, which is what people crave, not just gimmicky things on a plate. After 6 years at Le Cirque, I decided to start my own business. I opened Daniel at 76th Street in May '93. I am very concerned about nutrition and always try to be careful about what I eat. A lot of young chefs today get carried away by trends, by influences, by movements. When France was the only reference for chefs to learn, you could go everywhere in the world, and they would copy dishes directly because they didn't have much expanded imagination or technique or knowledge. I think DC has always been very, very vibrant for food, like Boston in a way. Boston and DC were really the two cities that were the most active with their local chefs and their local food scene. I want to make sure the fine dining restaurant has a clientele who is local as much as tourists and foodies. I was 25 years old when I arrived in DC. It was just myself and 2 people who worked and helped me in the kitchen. I was only cooking for 3 people most of the time. I've discovered the burger is a crazy thing in Vegas, but I was one of the early chefs to do a lot of burgers. If you're in a major city, there's a 25-year cycle. In Vegas, it's probably 10 or 15 years, except for those landmark places like Spago or Nobu. In Vegas, you have to reinvent yourself once in a while. I've always loved it in Las Vegas, and it is the only city in the world that brings so many different talented people from so many places. In Singapore, there is this life and locals and restaurants and then big casinos and an array of chefs, and even Miami is almost close to Vegas when it comes to an amazing presentation of chefs. But they don't have these massive hotels that have become their own culinary villages. 25 years ago, when I started in New York, I had the pleasure to cook for Andy Warhol. At the time, I could have traded art for food. I should have done so, because I could get his work for nothing. The problem is that there is many great chefs and many great cookbooks, but none of them work at home. For me, the food I like to make is the food I can enjoy all the time anytime. It's not too calculated or technical. I try to come to Asia twice a year. I also go to Europe, to London as well as to France to see my family, 4 or 5 times a year. I try to pack light with a folding leather suit bag. Anything more than 5 days, I need to check in my luggage. What takes the most space? Chef jackets, aprons, and tools. I usually try to eat in my restaurants before I fly, as I'd rather sleep on the plane and just order a salad with cheese, maybe some ice cream. From Japan to Thailand, I keep discovering amazing talent, cuisine and food markets. I appreciate the constant evolution in refining food, but not in making food gimmicky. I am very proud of Jim Lycan. He has worked with me for 6 years and has been patient enough to learn the ropes. He's now matured into a true chef and is working on building his team. I love to make a one-pot meal, think stir-fry but in the French fricassee. I start with what takes the longest to roast and then add vegetables, fresh herbs, and starch until the meal is complete in one shot. I love to drive, especially on tracks, where I go a lot faster. If you aren't born here, to be a real New Yorker, you have to bring your talent, be a successful mentor, and support the New Yorkers who made the city by giving back. I never go to Vancouver without stopping by Thomas Haas' shop for the best chocolate in North America. A former chef pâtissier at Daniel, he returned to his hometown and created a top-quality brand by sticking to his passion. I actually don't think there is any difference between French and American cuisine. French cuisine was always about discipline, about ingredient, about creativity, but also about simple. I see America as very similar in these rights. I can't conceive of cooking in a sunny place like Florida because my motivation comes from the changing seasons. That's why I decided to live in New York. New York has an amazing history of farming and fishing that goes right back to the Pilgrim Fathers. At its core are the 4 seasons, which are distinct, well-established and similar to those in Lyon, where my family lives. When it's snowing in New York, a week later it will be snowing there. In the springtime, we have soft-shell crab from Maryland, which I'd never had until I came to America. In the summer and early fall, we have striped bass, stripies, which come all the way up the Hudson River but mostly gather in the Sound at the tip of Long Island, off Montauk. In the Bronx, you have the Southern Italians, in Queens, the Greeks, Koreans and Chinese, in Brooklyn, the Jewish community, and in Harlem, the Hispanics, all with their own markets. I always had a lot of fun in America, with much more freedom than if I had tried to cook in France. I wouldn't have the same motivation or inspiration, and I wouldn't have cooked for the same kind of people in France, so it wouldn't have given me this edge I had in America. The biggest thing is education for young chefs and how they should focus on one cuisine rather than trying to imitate too many. It's like art. You can see the cycles from many past artists and new artists being inspired by past artists. Visit our website for more quotes, quoting.com.